This was an age of seismic industrial upheaval, propelled not so much by the Thatcher government, but by the sheer momentum of technological change.
This is a microchip. Doesn't look like much, does it? But what this represented was nothing short of a social, cultural, and technological revolution.
For some people, computers were just a gimmick. But the government believed they were the future.
Yes, that's the section.
A few weeks after Margaret Thatcher had first won power, her industry secretary and ideological mentor, Sir Keith Joseph, sent her this memo. Now, Thatcher and Joseph had come to power absolutely determined to roll back the state and force British industry to stand on its own 2 feet. But now Joseph told her that the computer industry ought to be a special case. It is, he wrote, of crucial importance to our future industrial and economic performance. In its way, it's likely to be of the same sort of importance as was the steam engine. So Mrs. Thatcher decided not just to pour money into Britain's computer industry, but to try and create a nation of young programmers. And to do that, she put computers into schools.
The contract to supply our nation's classrooms went, naturally, to a British firm, Acorn Computing. And the result, devised in league with Britain's public service broadcaster, was the BBC Micro. This was a computer built for programming, a computer to fire the imagination of Middle England.
Now, I used to love this machine, the BBC Micro, not just because we had it at school, but because this was the very first home computer that my parents ever bought. I was 10 at the time, and for months I'd been chipping away at their resistance, endlessly lecturing them about its vital importance as an educational tool without which I would be sunk in the harsh new world of the 1980s. Still, let's see if I've got the old magic. Might look rudimentary to you, but I'll have you know, this is how Bill Gates started.
The BBC Micro faced stiff competition, not least from a deceptively flimsy-looking little machine that sold at barely half the price and came with an unforgettable rubber keyboard.
Now, this is the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. And if the BBC was something of an electronic Volvo, and this was a bit more of an electronic Skoda. Still, if you were in the market for a home computer at Christmas 1984, the BBC would have set you back about £400, but the Spectrum would only cost about £129. So it's hardly surprising that in a decade haunted by recession and unemployment, the Spectrum proved a tremendous hit. Indeed, by the middle of the 1980s, Sinclair had shifted almost 5 million of them, some of them to my classmates. Now, did we all use our new hardware to write our own programs, or just to play games? Well, what do you think?
Mrs. Thatcher's dream of a nation of computer coders never quite came off. But the children of BBC Micro Britain did go on to develop some of the most successful games ever made, not least the best-selling Grand Theft Auto series, which set new standards for gameplay and graphics. And by the mid-1980s, Britain had gone computer crazy.
The British now have more home computers than anywhere else in the world. Most of the users are youngsters, taking to the computer as naturally as adults now use the telephone.
You print into the computer directions for it to try and go through the maze and hit the target.
When it comes to trying to take a new idea and to get it into industry, the brain is at its best when you're young.
How does that help you with your schoolwork then?
Well, I don't think it does.
Before long, the boom in British-made home computers had rather fizzled out. By the end of the decade, both the Spectrum and the BBC were effectively out of date. And by now, British consumers were turning to faster, flashier American models like the Commodore Amiga or the Atari ST. And that, I think, told a wider and more interesting story. Because more than almost any other nation in the world, Mrs. Thatcher's Britain eagerly embraced the new era of globalization. And now, in everything from computers to cookery, ordinary people were beginning to look outside our shores for entertainment and inspiration.